Oh, that was fast. All right. Okay. Hello, Millions of Women Strong. I told you that I was super excited for today. So it's Alisha Carlson is here with me. She is one of the authors of the inaugural issue of The Wisdom of Women, and somebody that I love her work and who she is in the world and her mission. So she's a non-diet lifestyle coach, right? Did I get it right?
Yes.
Which, if you know anything about me, food and everything has been my nemesis. I guess that's probably the first wrong part, is that it is my nemesis. But anyway, I love everything that Alisha's about. Super excited to have her here. You've got to get to The Wisdom of Women and read her article. But for now, let's kind of get in. So Alisha, I'm going to let you say a little bit more about you, about yourself, that you want people to know. And I'm going to be looking over here so people that are watching can post your questions, and I'll just be checking in on that. So
okay. Well, first, Georgiana, thank you so much for that warm welcome. It is definitely a privilege to be here with you and this community. I do feel like the Millions of Women Strong and the Strong Her Way, there is definitely some kindred spiritness happening there, just in the sense of really like wanting to empower women to step out into the world and accomplish that mission that has been laid on their hearts. And I love that you're tackling that from like a business aspect, and really that community aspect. And I get to do kind of the body empowerment, the mind empowerment, and really just like working with women, coming alongside them, partnering with them to help them really reconcile their relationship with food and exercise in their bodies. And I definitely don't think that you're alone in that feeling like, man, like food and exercise and my weight, like all of that stuff has just been something that has been a struggle, or like you put it, a nemesis. And so that really is the crux of my work. It's helping women create a new sense of being with food and their bodies, because I truly do think that the way that we think about ourselves informs the way that we're showing up in our businesses, in our work, with our spouses, our partners, our kids. It really does bleed into everything. And so that's what I'm super passionate about, is just really helping women show up in a more empowered and strong way around food, around exercise, so that they can show up and be kind of those big, bold, audacious women that they kind of are at heart.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's really interesting. So we were talking before we went live, and about exercise and the myths that there are around exercise and probably eating and food and all of that, diets. But it was interesting because Alisha was mentioning about the myths around exercise, and I'm like, oh my God, just this morning I was like, I didn't want to go for a walk, but I thought I should go for a walk to get my body moving. And I'm like, but it really doesn't count as a workout if I'm just going to go for a walk for 20 minutes. So why bother? I should just go sit down and go to work. And so let's talk about this a little bit, because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. And I think that there are a lot of myths, as you were saying, that maybe we could kind of dive into here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as you were saying that, I still think that's so funny that you're like, hey, is there anything you want to talk about? And I'm like, yeah, one of them being this idea that if I can't work out for 45 minutes, or I can't hit the gym, or I can't get the whole workout done, then it really is kind of this idea of like, well, why bother? Why should I even do the 10 or 15 minutes that I can do? And I just think like that's such an interesting place, right? It's like, well, if I can't do all of it, then I would just be better off to do none of it. And so I think that that's one of those myths kind of that we have about it, that working out or exercise has to look a very specific way. It has to be a very specific amount of time. You have the people that it's like, it has to happen at a gym, or it has to be in a class. And I think that we would probably all do well to just kind of examine first and foremost, what we're choosing to think about exercise. And then also, like, what if we just kind of dropped the expectation and it was like, hey, if I have 15 or 20 minutes, a walk is going to be just as good as if I could do a 15 or 20-minute run, right? It's just like meeting yourself where you're at and letting that be good enough for that moment.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the whole good enough thing, right? Because that's a day and a half, maybe a year and a half of talking just about that, right? The worthiness of even taking the 15 minutes for yourself, for whatever reason, right? Whether, well, I should do this and I should sit down in front of my computer. I should write that email. I should do this. And, I've got to do this for everybody else. And, I'll come later. It doesn't matter any, like that whole, now that you've heard my internal dialogue, but
I think that you are speaking to people that really understand that, where whether it's in our work, whether it's with how we're showing up to our kids, or if we have partners, spouses that we're showing up to, or exercise and food, we're always going to be kind of not at the mercy of that dialogue, but that I think that dialogue is always going to be there. And I think part of this, like, not enoughness, is that sometimes I feel like we feel like we have to see the result before we can trust that the work that we did was enough, right? So it's like in the instance of weight loss or something like that, it's like I have to physically see that the scale went down or that my clothes are fitting looser before I can feel like, okay, what I'm doing is enough, rather than just choosing to believe that if I do this, if I, show up and I give what I can give today, it's like you're suspending your trust for a minute. And it's just believing that, yes, what I do today is going to add up. It is going to be enough. And it's going to eventually create that result that I want, whether that's a fitness goal that you have, another health goal that you have, a business goal. But so bad we want that result right there. And it's like we hinge whether or not we're doing enough or we are enough based on the results that we're creating.
Yeah. And I think one thing I just heard is am I going to make the sacrifice for the unknown result?
Mm-hmm.
Because so many times, with so many different diets and ways of exercise and, so many different things, right? Just take 15 minutes and walk. That'll do it. But you've got to get your heart rate up for 30. Like, there's so much. I know, we probably all of us know that there's so many different theories of the best way to exercise, the minimum amount, the maximum amount, what you should do, what you shouldn't do. It's like, I was working out with a trainer and they told me, well, that's not, the squats, it used to be keep your knees over your ankles. Don't let them push in front of your toes. And now it's like, I guess that's not a thing anymore. So yeah. It's so crazy how things change. And depending on where we learned it or heard it, or it becomes fact for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go ahead. Well, I do think to that point, there is so much different information out there, and it does all seem to kind of contradict itself, right? And I think that that's where sometimes we can get lost in the weeds, is it's like, I truly believe deep down, like, we all want to do the best that we can do for ourselves, right? Like, I just have that genuine sense. It's like, we all want to be the healthiest, most vibrant version of ourselves. And we just sometimes don't know exactly where to start. So then that kind of takes us back to the, well, I'm just not even going to start because I don't know exactly how to get going. And one thing that came up recently in a client coaching call, which I think really applies here, is it's like, let's have kind of your plan A, which maybe would be your ideal workout schedule, right? It's like, okay, if I could plan this perfectly, every single night I got the perfect amount of rest, I always felt energized, like, what would be kind of that perfect ideal plan A schedule for you in this season of life? And then let's also kind of come up with a plan B. So it's like, maybe, I didn't sleep very well, I'm feeling super tired, whatever it is, I'm not really feeling like I can push myself to get here mentally and do this whatever. Great. Let's rely on the plan B. So maybe plan A is I'm going to do this 30-minute strength training workout. Plan B might be that 15 or 20-minute walk, right? But it's like you still have a plan in place. So I think you can still kind of celebrate that, yes, I made a plan. Yes, I still showed up for myself. But it doesn't feel, I think that kind of also helps a little bit with that all or nothing of like, well, if I can't do the 30 minutes, I might as well not do anything. It's like, well, no, I've actually already taken care of that.
I think what's really great about what you're saying too is having a plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we haven't done the thinking, we wouldn't go into launching a program in our business or a coaching package or anything without some kind of plan. We wouldn't just, go out there and start doing something. It's the plan that makes it successful, and to know whether you're on the right track, whether you need to pivot or move, or, what's working, what's not working. And, same thing with diets and nutrition, having a plan of what, how you're going to do that. So, and I haven't really thought about that, like really having a plan for I certainly did when I was training to compete.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I knew what I was doing every day.
Mm-hmm.
I tracked everything.
Yeah.
But, now that there's no end goal called getting on stage, right?
Or running a race or like whatever fitness goal, like if it is really just that general goal of like, I just want to be able to live my life. I want to feel strong. I want to be healthy. Then yeah, that finish line is so ambiguous that it does become that thing that it's like, oh, I'll just do this someday. Where, yeah, I think, taking what you know about business and then applying that to this area of your life as well. It's like you already have skill sets. You already have things that you know how to do, how to implement, how to create results in another area. So then it just becomes kind of looking at what can I pull from this that's already working really well over here? And how can I start to layer that and apply that to this other area that maybe feels like I'm not getting the traction that I want?
Yeah, that's interesting, because of everything I know about planning and everything, I never thought about that. And I love the plan A and plan B, because there's nothing wrong. Like if you don't get up and I've done that so many times, like I'm going to do it this and this, or I'm going to work out here and there, I'm going to do this, but then I wake up and my back hurts, or, it's not the same as it used to. So instead of going, I'll see, you can't do this, doesn't work, whatever the noise is. If I had a plan B called, okay, then today we're just going to go take a walk around the block, even like just move.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. So, I mean, you've already given so many golden nuggets already, but is there any other tips or tricks that for an entrepreneur who is, already busy, maybe they have a family along with their business, like what are some of the other things that they could put their attention on to help them move in that stronger way? And,
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, it kind of takes us back to when we were talking about just having a goal. I think sometimes, yes, that overall general goal of being healthy, feeling strong, whatever works. But then you also want to kind of start to set maybe little micro weekly goals of like, for myself, I want to move my body in some way every single day, right? So it's like, first and foremost, you have to kind of have some sort of more defined goal so that you can clearly say like, yes, I did this, no, I didn't. And then you can really evaluate. With that, I think it also comes because this can be an area where women definitely want to beat themselves up for. It's like, if you're not hitting the goal of working out, let's say, or moving your body for 30 minutes a day, notice if the tendency is to go into beating yourself up and blaming and shaming yourself. That's not going to elicit change. So instead of, especially if that's kind of the natural tendency of like, see, there you did it again, you messed up, you suck, whatever, like you said, that dialogue is, it's like we have to kind of drop that in order for us to be able to drop into curiosity and say, okay, this is really weird. I set this plan. Why didn't I achieve this? Like, why did I only move my body 2 of the 5 days when I set the goal for 5? And it's like, when we get curious, and even my husband was so funny. He was like, yeah, I was just listening to this podcast, and if you say like, that's interesting, then it does kind of drop that defense. And so as silly or cheesy as that might be to say to yourself, you definitely don't have to say that out loud, but just be like, that's so interesting. Like, I planned that I was going to do this workout, or I planned that this was what I was going to eat for today, and I didn't stick with that plan. I wonder why that is. Like, that just creates that space for you to be curious and for your brain to really like give you the answers, right? Of like, well, I don't know, like it wasn't a priority, or you didn't see, like whatever that thing is for you. So have the plan, drop into curiosity instead of that blame and shame game when you're not, living up to it. And then I think like really considering your season of life. I think that's something else, especially like if you have a family and your business, and you have these personal goals that you're working on. I think sometimes we can think like, well, man, I should still be able to get like a 60-minute workout in, just like I did when I didn't have kids, or, when I wasn't working as many hours or whatever. So really consider this particular season of life and the demands on your time and your energy coming from all different places. And then decide for yourself, like either A, like what is realistic and feels doable within those other time and energy constraints, and B, is there a place, or are there places in other areas of your life where you feel like you could cut back on the energy and the time that you're giving, so that you can start to delegate some of that time and energy into a fitness routine, or into meal prep, or cooking more at home, like whatever that is for you. So I think one, it's like having a plan, but then two, like be really honest with yourself about the season of life and where you're going to be able to pull time and energy from.
Yeah, I think it's really, I think that's just super powerful around talking about the season of life, because for myself, you and I have talked about it. I think I've shared on here as well, but coming from that bodybuilding world to being injured, to having this autoimmune disease and everything in between, it's definitely a different season for me. I guess I had my own business back then too, but, really wanting it to be the same as it was when I was training to compete, and pissed off that it's not that way anymore, so, and I love just looking at the different seasons that life has for us. And it's, whether I'm dealing with an autoimmune disease or not, right? It's still a different season. And being able to look at what those different seasons are just as seasons versus something that's wrong. That's powerful.
Yeah. And like holding that past standard of yourself, like against yourself, right? So it's like, we can look at maybe different seasons of life where we had more time, or it was easier for us to work out, or whatever that is. And we can look at that and we can either learn from it, or we can use it and kind of hold it up as like, see, this is like where you used to be and now you're not there. And I see that a lot with the clients that I work with that were former athletes as well. It's like there was a season of their life where it totally revolved around their athletic performance, to an extent what their bodies looked like, their weight. And then there's kind of this rub, I guess, against the reality of where they're at now versus kind of this romanticized idea about where they used to be. Because even those past seasons of life, and you and I can relate to the bodybuilding because we share that as a past experience, I can look back on that and I can see like all the good things about it. And then maybe I totally forget the way that like having to be so strict about my workouts, having to be so strict about my food really like wasn't all that great. And so I think too, just like when we are reflecting on maybe other seasons of life where it felt easier, try not to forget like the hard part about that season as well.
Yeah, it's so true. That is such a good point because, the sacrifices with every, reward or result that you have, period, you've sacrificed something.
Mhm.
And it, with fitness, with bodybuilding or any kind of sport, or wherever you were, there were things that you sacrificed then that you're not willing to sacrifice now, and looking at what that is. So anyway, this has been amazing as always. This is what I love about you. Every time I talk to you, I get some new insight. It's great. So everybody, I'm going to put first off, if there's anybody that has questions, go ahead and for Alisha, put those in the comments now, and I'll get them to her before we wrap up here. But I'm going to put the link to her article in the comments so you can read that for some more nuggets from Alisha, as well as get all of her contact information, how to reach her, to get to her podcast, Strong Her.
The Strong Her Way. Yep.
Her Way. Yep. Which I love. So anyway, so you can click on that, get all of her information. Alisha, anything you just want to add before we wrap up here? And I'm going to refresh here and see if anybody has a question.
I think just the biggest thing, it's like practice meeting yourself with where you're at in this particular season of life, and really think about like what kind of your non-negotiables are for yourself. Like what sort of is that minimum baseline where it's like, okay, if I could only, do like 1, 2, or 3 things for myself in this arena of health, fitness, or really like any area of your life, clearly establishing that for yourself ahead of time is going to be huge, because then it's like at least at the end of the day, you can look at that very short list of 1, 2, or 3 things.
Yeah.
And you can have just that honest moment with yourself of reflection of like, did I hit these things? Yes or no? Why or why not? And like what maybe was helpful in, doing the things that you did, and what were maybe some of the obstacles that kind of prevented you from keeping your word to yourself. So I'm a big believer in kind of personal accountability. And again, it just comes from that place of like believing in yourself, right? And wanting to show up for yourself rather than shaming yourself and kind of beating yourself up for the things that you didn't do.
So great. All right, everybody, there's some nuggets for you. And for anybody who is watching or they're watching the replay, put hashtag replay. And why don't you share 1 or 2 of the actions or the plan, what you can plan for yourself, just the takeaways here. So I know that I'm just going to put it on loudspeaker right now. So every day I'm going to move for at least 15 minutes. Whether it be strength training or walking or riding the bike. Even I'm going to count my gardening because I work my butt off in my garden. But
yes. And that's the other thing. I'm a big believer that all movement counts. So yeah. I don't discriminate against that, whether it's a formal exercise, workout or just movement. Yeah. It all counts.
Yeah. It is funny though. I mean, I told you about my struggle this morning with my internal conversation, and I did go for a walk, and I've been dealing with the pain has been pretty bad the last couple of days, and I feel a lot better. Like the pain in my back is gone, and I don't think it's a coincidence that I walked this morning.
Yeah.
So it's linking those 2 things too that I think makes a difference as well.
100%. Yeah. We're always so much more motivated when we can even see those little wins of like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit more energized or a little bit less stiff. I think
it's so interesting. Why is it not? Because whenever I work out, I always feel better. Like always, not sometimes, always. Why? This is probably the unanswerable question, but why isn't that like enough motivation? It's like, oh my God, I feel so good after. Like, why would we not want to do that every day?
I know.
It's crazy, isn't it? Anyway, well, this has been amazing, Alisha. Thank you for this. Thank you for being one of the writers and contributing to the inaugural issue of The Wisdom of Women. And for those of you who haven't read it yet, I'll put the link in the comments below, and make sure you read Alisha's article, and there's about 10 other articles as well, and I love them because we made them like 600-ish words, so there was some nuggets in there, but easy to consume because we're all super busy. So I hope that you'll take a look, and thank you very much for being with me. Thank you, everybody listening, for being members of the Millions of Women Strong. Together, we're stronger. And I appreciate you. Thank you very much. And we'll see you tomorrow with Terry Mahaney at 1 o'clock. She is a mindset coach. She has developed a lot of technology and a lot of science behind it, and working with changing your brain. She's been published and all kinds of stuff. She's amazing. She's one of those people who has a bunch of letters after her name, right? So anyway, that'll be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.